Welcome to As Above.
So below,
I am Kisha Lee, the Psychic Yogi.
and I'm Cidnee Rich, and this is Astro Reiki Sagittarius season. Claps, 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 claps. So we are nearing the end of the calendar year, but we are still in the throes of our zodiac travel, and we're with the Centaur now. And Sag energy has been that energy that I have learned over the years, having more knowledge of astrology to really enjoy and understand the complexities, but also the necessity of Sagittarius energy. A lot of times, I would think of Sag and it just like that centaur, like the half horse and the wild horse imagery. It's like, it's just wild. It's all over the place. It's here, it's there, it's everywhere. And it would kind of like agitate myself. And I'd like, what is this energy that makes me feel prickly? And I was like, oh, it's Sag energy. And then I had to ask, like, why? And it's like, you know why? Because it's at its core, it's got some fun to it. It's got life to it. It's vibrant. It's like, you know what? Fuck it. We're doing this. Or as Yami, shout out to her, would say, fuck it, we ball. It's that energy. And I had to really realize like I had a little bit of a block there with that type of freedom of like just doing things. And Sag is freeing. It's fire. It's like wildfire, right? It's the mutable fire sign. So you can really think of it like that, like fire that might just spring up everywhere. And you're just like, where'd you come from? And it might even be tameable in a sense, or it could get like out of control. But it's something that at its core has like a really magical quality to it, because to me, fire, when I think about that as an element, was one of those first things that like we as humans kind of created, right? Like we had to put two and two things together to like create this fire so that we can eat and be warm. And so it has this very practical aspect to it, but also like that creative spark, like and we all have it in us. And when we take off like that mental hat, it really, I think, is really the fuel to like our soul, fire energy. So love that Sag energy. It's the sage. So speaking of the soul, like it's got a lot of wisdom in it, and it's a teacher because of that wisdom. And to think about them creating fire way back when, that took a lot of soul. That was like soul, like like ingrained. How can we figure this out? Like there was no Google, you know, there was no AI to say, how do I stay warm? And like you really had to kind of unlock this like deep coded like understanding of the elements and what we need as people to kind of get to that thought process of creating fire. So it is and it always has been the sage, the teacher to us all, in a way that is very useful, right? It's masculine, it's yang energy. So it's like external, and we're doing something with it and we're going places with it. And it's got this explorative energy. Like, what else is there? What more can we do? And when we as humans stop kind of exploring, that's when we start to like atrophy. And that is not the vibe. Like, I'm trying to be out here, learning, doing, seeing all the things all the time. And that's that Sag energy that kind of really ignites that within us as people, that make us want to learn. With it being opposing of Gemini energy, it's like the doer of the thinker, right? And so it's like, let's go and make this, okay, well, we explored the idea of going somewhere. Well, now let's actually book the plane ticket and go there and see it for ourselves and be able to tell people our stories and our experience. And then also learning something. For me, I was just talking about that before we started recording. I learn best when I'm like putting into practice. And I feel like that's, that Sagittarius energy, because Virgo is a teacher too, and it's in a very kind of like classic way. But Sagittarius is like the fun day in class when you get to do the cool science experiment with the volcano. You know what I mean? You get to actually see the things coming together and the action happening. And so your brain starts to understand it in a different way, relate to it in a different way, and make it more a part of like your experience, your life. You can understand it. And so with this season, it's about, I think, us as individuals really being able to explore past our bounds, right? Scorpio is very boundaried energy. It's fixed. It's like you're going to be here and you're going to figure it out within these confines. And then we get to Sag season and we're like, we get to like blow past those boundaries and say, but I want to go all the way over there. Like now I feel more emotionally secure and stable. So I'm going to wander away. Okay. And I'm not going to get so lost because I know who I am and how I feel about things. So I'm allowing myself to kind of like open up and see what else is out there without losing myself. And that goes back to that freedom aspect of Sagittarius. It's like that energy doesn't like to feel contained. And I think, we all navigate energies, and all energies can be navigated, more successfully than others. And so there's, two sides to every coin, right? So when you're in Sag energy and maybe you're not harnessing it in a way that's really grounded or contained, in the sense of like that fire is, it's burning, but it's going to be okay. And it's not going to catch the whole world on fire. Then you're able to kind of explore in a way that feels useful, is kind of what's coming up to me, like helpful to you as a person. Whereas if you are navigating it unsuccessfully, that freedom could turn into like debauchery, right? Like you could just be like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then you don't have any kind of like path, that arrow that the centaur has, right? There's no like focus. You've lost the focus now, and now you're kind of like aimless. And so that's kind of the other aspect of Sagittarius energy, where I think, at the beginning I was talking about I get prickly. That's the prickly that I didn't like. It's like, okay, well, where are we going? Like, I'm all cool for like putting my backpack on and going somewhere, but like, do we know where we're going? Because I don't want to just be out here walking around. And so when you're able to have a plan and like know your end goal with Sagittarius energy, I really think it allows that balance to come into your life individually, as well as like the people that you're connecting with, to kind of, have that kind of sweet spot. Because in tarot, Sagittarius energy is ruled by Temperance, and Temperance is the angel. So it's already angelic, it's there to guide us, to show us the way. But it also teaches us that having temperance, I was like, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm looking for temperance. Temperance means patience, or like to hold back and not to overindulge, right? So when you have that temperance with that excitement and that desire to do and see, you can actually make something really magical and beautiful, because you're pushing the boundaries, you're expanding. Like with Jupiter rules Sagittarius, you're expanding, but you're doing it in a way that is like a science project, that it's like the right measurements of everything to get that product, or to, talking about alchemy, to get that lead into gold. So I really think that with that Jupiter energy of optimism and abundance, connected with the temperance energy of balance and like really being mindful, really being thoughtful about what it is that you're doing and how you're going about that exploration, and then understanding why, right, is all kind of that package deal of a successfully navigated Sagittarius energy. because the ninth house in astrology is ruled by Sagittarius, and it's the house of higher learning. So college or just any more extended learning that you're doing, certifications, specializations, anything like that is Sagittarius energy. It's also where we have travel, right? Like, so the world and being worldly and culture is connected to the ninth house. So experiencing different cultures through traveling or through books and reading, or even through like just watching a lot of things or being friends with a lot of different culturally diverse people. That's definitely a marker of that Sagittarius energy too. But then on the other side, right, you have religion that is part of the ninth house, and spirituality is more of the 12th house with Pisces. But religion comes about as a way to teach people a belief system. And there's a healthy way of doing that. And we all know there's a very restricted way of doing that. And so it's kind of the I feel like some religions like a backlash to Sagittarius energy. It's trying to contain the knowledge or restrict the freedoms of people through this created structure, which Sag, like we just said, doesn't like. Like, don't tell me that I have to stay in this bubble. So our world is constantly in that temperance energy of trying to find the balance, and we have yet to find it. I hope and pray in this new Pluto and Aquarius season that we're in that we find that. And I think that Sagittarius energy can definitely be at the forefront of that, can definitely be that arrow pointing us in the right direction. If we allow ourselves to kind of let that type of divine masculine energy come into play, that creative, that explorative, that fun, that joyful, optimistic, abundant energy, and not that kind of cold, restricting, linear kind of masculine energy that's been, in the forefront of our society for so long. So I think that's all I want to say about Sag. So let's pull some cards. I'm going to use my Zodiac Tarot just in case some other astrological things want to come through. What is the collective message for Sagittarius season? We're still coming off this new moon. Collective message for anyone that's on the live now, or anyone that sees this later or listens later. Here's a collective message for Sagittarius. Okay. The Emperor, another fire sign, but in the cardinal sign of Aries. This is interesting because I just talked about the divine masculine, right? And this is the divine masculine in tarot. So I do think it's about us kind of redefining that divine masculine energy in a way that feels more alchemized to where we're going, right? Like, we don't have to just like denounce it. We need the divine masculine, right? So how can we work with that energy in a way that doesn't feel combative, but feels collaborative and creative and expansive for our journey, next? And I love that, because finding those different ways of working with energy that we feel prickly about is how we navigate life and our soul journey in a way that helps us grow, to helps us expand. It's like, okay, well, this thing is going to be here whether we like it or not. So how can we shift our relationship with it so we can understand it and bring some balance into, our lives? The Hierophant coming up next, Taurus energy. That's interesting because Taurus, the Hierophant is the Pope or the spiritual guide. So I feel like in this season, we're really being guided to really think about our values in a way that is open, right? We're opening ourselves up to exploring more and being where are we being guided? Where are we traveling? Right? Where are we traveling in our souls, and maybe literally too, because Taurus is definitely that soul energy. And then I have interesting. I have the Four of Swords reverse. So this is Libra energy in Jupiter. So Jupiter is Sagittarius energy. So when I see this, I find that really interesting. Libra balance, I just spoke about that. How do we bring balance into our lives through navigating masculine energy in a more creative way, but also letting our soul kind of guide us where we're trying to go. And with the Libra and Jupiter, it's saying, how do we expand in a way that is not too wild, right? We want to sustain this Sag exploration and expansion. And so in order to do that, we need that kind of balanced approach. And it's interesting because this came out reverse, crossing this Emperor energy. So it's saying, be mindful to keep the structure and not to get aimless, right? Don't get aimless. Don't lose the plot, so to speak, in your exploration. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Like, make sure you keep the plot. And then last, the sun. Beautiful. So we're in Sag season. We're all where the sun is in Sag. And this season is one showing us the way, right? It's lighting our path. And so we can stay on track in a sense. It just reminded me of Lion King. What did he say? He's like, everything the sun touches is our kingdom, that vibe. So it's like, yeah, you can have it all as long as you remember to have a goal, right? And have a plot following your soul. Like, what is it that you value? What is it that you care about? What is it that you're really trying to experience here in life? And the sun is about our identity. So going back to our individual selves, who are we within this expansion that we are experiencing during this season as we're gearing up to walk into a new calendar year and a Capricorn season that can really, really take us forward, right? Cool.
As a natal Sag moon, sometimes I think I low key enjoy having the Sag placement more than my other placements, because it's the freedom for me. If it's one thing that I've been personally working on since, I'll say, last couple months, is emotional freedom. The things that need to be purged, habits that need to be burned and thrown into the fire and transformed into something else, because we have that transformative ability, the alchemizing ability of fire. However, fire in the sign of Sagittarius, it to me breaks down like this. So Aries is the fire starter, right? You got the charcoal or the logs and everything, and you got the fire starter. You put the oil, the gas on there, and you light it up, and poof, that's the initial fire, right? The initiate. And so to me, that is Aries energy. It's the starter. Leo is the sustained fire, right? You gotta keep the flame kind of going, but keep it contained. That's that fixed energy. So you have a fire pit, or you have a fireplace, or something like that. But you see this magnificent light. You feel the warmth of it, right? Which is very much like Leo energy, very warm, and very strong and powerful. But it's kind of, it's this thing that you're like, wow, right? It's the impressionistic aspect of it. To me, Sagittarius is like if you have that fire pit, like I said, Aries is that initial fire or flame. Leo is the pit itself and the warmth that it brings, the heat that's generated by fire. Sagittarius are those little sparks that fly out, right? As the wood burns and stuff, it's like those little sparks that you see, and you're like, oh, don't get me, because like, oh, why don't you burn my hair up or something? But those little flakes that you see of light, the little magical pieces of fiery dust, right, that floats around in the air and kind of brings like a sense of warmth, but the little playfulness, some magic, and can be a little like, like that prickliness that Cidnee was saying earlier. And so Sagittarius, the sparks that fly within the flames or around the flames, to me, that's that expansive energy, the Jupiter that it brings, right? It's still fire, but it's not contained in the initial resourcing of it or within the actual pit itself or within the logs and the embers that, eventually go out. But it's the little sparks that fly up around it. So it kind of has this tendency to leave the comfort zone, to leave the space that is confined in. And when that happens, it's to me like a representation of that exploratory aspect, the adventure, the risk taker, because when those sparks fly out, you don't know where exactly they're going to land, if they're going to catch something in fire or what, right? So you start to move plants out the way, or kids playing like, yeah, don't get too close, things like that. But it's to me, once again, that sense of expansion, going beyond what is keeping it contained, beyond whatever structures that's holding it. And so it's kind of like that ability, like Cidnee was saying with the sun, being able to, like in Lion King, he said, everything that the sun touches is our kingdom. And so when we go on a new adventure, when you think of the new frontier and stuff like that, most people, what do? They follow the horizon. Right. Go towards the horizon. And so to me, that is that energy of Sag, like calling you, because the sun is fire, and so it's like drawing us in. As long as we continue to like chase the horizon, we're always going to be on a new adventure. It's also to me a little bit kind of like when you're going on if you feel like you're going into a dark night of the soul at this time. I know I wouldn't say I'm going through a dark night of the soul. It's been a very soft, very gentle, very kind to self type of excavation, if anything. And through that excavating of self, I've been exploring deeper areas of myself and the chambers of my heart that have been illuminated through carrying that torch, right? That flame. And that's typically something also like the sun. It can be wide and expansive, and don't give not one fuck what anybody thinks. If it's gonna be hot, it's gonna be hot. You're just gonna have to adapt, right? I feel very much one of our friends, Yami, who's like, fuck it, we ball. I'm like, yeah, because that's also what has gotten me in trouble lots of times. Oh, it's gonna be all right. Fuck it. Just put the fuck it in your system. So I understand the rebellious part, a little bit of the, feather ruffling, the part that likes to be a little rebellious and can be reckless and irresponsible, but it's still like this luck, this optimism. It kind of just makes things work out, right? Because if that's the natural energy that you emit, then that's also what you're gonna attract. So I tend to seem to be lucky in certain areas that other people are like, how do you? I'm like, but okay, and just keep going. But to me, if you find that right now, especially with the season change and the light, right? The sun, there's less hours in the day with sunlight, so it gets dark, like I don't know, lunch. But but if you find that you are navigating not only the season but your own life and whatever season you're in life in a place that feels a little dark, just remember anytime explorers go searching in dark, what do? It's like the hermit. They hold a lantern, right? Or if you're going exploring through caves like, Indiana Jones, they always make sure like, well, let's get a little stick with some light on it, right? We're always looking for the light. And sometimes you have to be the one to spark that. And what's going to help you with that is in order to sustain not necessarily momentum, but that explorative, fun, playful, maybe depth and truth seeking aspect of yourself in order to really to get to the depths of what your soul may be calling you. You need to follow those little flickers of light. It's like little fireflies, right? I like fireflies. But it's like fire following those little flickers of light, but also making sure you know where they're coming from, right? Because if it's not from a sustainable source, and eventually they're going to run out, that sustainable source is you. Okay, that sustainable source is connecting to your inner wisdom. It is like that temperance card. It is like the emperor that's having that grounded sense of self. It is also just kind of like that, not necessarily the religious, but that devotional act, right? Of showing up for yourself, consciously being present with yourself, honoring yourself like you would if you went to a church or a temple, and having that reverence for the own wisdom that you possess within to guide you to the next step, right? And to illuminate the path before you. So when you know where that source is coming from, and you know that it's coming from within yourself, it is more sustainable because it's not externalized, right? It's not being outsourced and something that you have to continue to go back to get. It's not like some sort of supply that is outside of yourself. It's within. And when you know where that's coming from, and it's from within yourself, right? Your passions, your sense of just what brings you joy, what brings you happiness, what really lights you up, so to speak, then that allows you to chase that more, and maybe not chase it, but to like follow that. Right. And that is where the potential for what truly brings you the most joy, the most happiness, the most sense of self and expansion and growth and prosperity, luck, fortune, abundance, all that. You begin to really explore the depths of who you are, and that is what's going to help you to say more self-sustaining, to actualize the potential that is within you, and to keep the spark going, that spark of life going in your eyes, in your heart, in your soul, your spirit, your body, and just bringing that color to life. So I really enjoy Sag season. I don't know where I came. Well, I do know where I came up with that whole sparks and all that. It's from Cidnee's talking about Aries and Leo. I was like, oh, yeah, it's like that. Um, and another thing, when we're talking about like utilizing the element of fire, and I mentioned the lantern and the stick with the fire at the end. Also, when we talk about alchemize and transmutation, I think it's funny because that little bit of magic, that spark, kind of also reminds me of what is the Disney movie Fantasia. So with Mickey Mouse, and he has the wand, and guess what? When you point a wand at something and you're working your magic, what happens? Little sparks fly out, and the wands, of course, in tarot represents the energy of fire. So allow your thoughts to be your magic wand, allow your heart to illuminate the way, and just go with peace, blessings, and abundance.
Way to tie that all together, Libra. Love it. Heart is perfect. Well, this has been another amazing Astro Reiki session. And we're excited to get into this meditation. If you guys are watching, listening, do know that we are doing this every month for each astrological season. I am going to continue to use the Patreon as a offering space for this because I just want more people to connect with it. So just know that if you're just part of our Patreon as any member, I'm going to continue to make this accessible, especially this part, obviously, goes on YouTube. Hey, y'all, goes on our podcast. Thank you for listening. But to get access to the meditation, you do have to be a paid member of the Patreon. So just check that out. And bless. Thank you so much. And we will see you for good old Capricorn season.